Welcome to another podcast of Mad in Love. If you're new here, I'm Dr. David Hawkins from the Marriage Recovery Center, and we are back in our Dr. Hawkins Reacts series.
All right, first question. This is posted by It's a Throwaway. There's 3 S's. It's a Throwaway. Story number 1. Am I the a-hole for telling my wife our daughter is more important than she is? Our daughter is turning 18 in October. She's a great kid, always pulled straight A's, never in any type of trouble. She's very respectful. My wife recently decided to have a talk with her about adult responsibilities. I had no knowledge of this conversation until my daughter came to me crying because she was scared about living on her own. I was confused at first. Then she told me her mother said she needs to start looking for a job because she'll be expected to get her own place after her birthday. I was appalled because we never discussed throwing her out at 18. When I confronted my wife, she said our daughter wasn't a child anymore and needed our push to become an adult. I told her I was really baffled that she would exclude me from such a serious decision/conversation. I asked my wife, how does she expect our kid to make it on minimum wage, especially considering the rent is out of control in our area? She then informed me that she had planned for us to pay half her rent until she was 20. I asked her why she wanted our kid gone so bad. As the argument intensified, I believe she slipped by saying she needed the space, her bedroom, for her art studio. I couldn't believe it. I told my wife if her hobby was more important than our daughter, she should be the one looking to rent. However, she took that as me saying, move out, but that's not how I meant it. I was implying for her to rent more space for her studio and leave our daughter alone. She didn't believe that's what I actually meant. She then gave me the silent treatment for 3 days. Our daughter, however, was upset as she processed her mother wanting her to move out. She realized moving into a rental meant she had to leave her 2 cats behind. She's had these cats since she was a young child, and that alone devastated her. She told me, I don't want to turn 18. I don't want to celebrate my birthday. I picked the argument back up with my wife at that point, and I said, our daughter isn't moving out until she decides on her own terms because she's more important than you or your hobby. She looked stunned, and maybe in the heat of the moment, I didn't choose my words wisely.
You think?
I couldn't bear to see our daughter so upset any longer. I don't want her struggling to make ends meet and not being able to follow her dreams. The last thing I want is for her to feel rushed. As far as my wife goes, she's not talking to me at all, and she's been cold toward our daughter.
Well, this was a bloodbath, and I won't use any other expletives, but people can fill in the blank. It's oh my word, what a mess. By the way, I don't even know if I would call that a good fight. I mean, you can have kind of a good fight where two people have strong feelings and they're sharing strong feelings and they're kind of, anybody who's been married has had good fights and really bad fights where you end up like, oh my goodness, everybody. And in this situation, Jonathan, everybody is bleeding. Everybody's bleeding. The daughter's
Absolutely.
bleeding, the husband's bleeding, the wife's bleeding. And notice that they use this language. Well, I picked up the argument from there. We let it, 3 days of silent treatment, and then we picked up the argument. Okay, let's see. Is my job, as I'm sorting through all of this, Jonathan, my job is to answer the M, I, the A. Is this man, did this man end up saying, our daughter is more important than you? I didn't hear that quote in there, but.
At the end, he says, our daughter isn't moving out until she decides on her own terms because she's more important than you or your hobby.
Yeah. Okay, gotcha. Right. Yeah, I did hear that. So, I mean, this is kind of an impossible situation to respond to, Jonathan, because all throughout the whole thing, both of them were opinionating each other. They were attacking each other. There was not 1 ounce, from what I heard from you, not 1 ounce of useful and healthy conversation. It was a fight. It wasn't even a good fight. I don't even know if I would call it a fight. It was a battle. So, but should he have said that? No, he should not have said that. Our daughter is more important than you. Incredibly hurtful thing to say. But should she have excluded him from this conversation? I don't think she should have excluded him. They needed to be working as a team regarding this incredibly important decision about when and how will we be encouraging our daughter to leave the home. So, am I answering the question? Everybody
Yeah,
acted badly.
absolutely. And I think that's a bit of what I've seen from reading this subreddit is it's a bit of a setup for me. It seems like the posters are asking, am I the a-hole, as if there's one.
Yeah.
There's one that is that way. And I think that oftentimes that's what I'm reading between the lines, and just not even reading, just what is presented to us. They're both the a-hole.
They are. They are.
And it seems like even the question is, if that is true, because he's admitting, like, I didn't choose my words very carefully, but even then, it seems like sometimes people are asking, but is she the bigger a-hole? Which I think is just a bad place to be coming from if you're looking for that type of validation.
No, I think that's totally appropriate, Jonathan. That there's not a bigger. It's if I was counseling them, I would say, look, you all need to have a really, really important conversation about when and how your daughter is going to be exiting the home. What are the boundaries? What are the conditions? But it needs to be a thoughtful, calm conversation. It needs to be, and this is a time for husband and wife to be really connected. What an important time in a family's life when the daughter is leaving the home. So anyway, lots of emotion on both parts. They slipped into their worst selves instead of their best selves. So what they should have done is she should have said, hey, husband, let's sit down tonight and let's talk about, we both have really strong feelings about what to do with our daughter and when and how she should leave the home. Let's sit down, let's talk it through. I'm going to you've heard me say this, Jonathan, the topic of holding space, which is so critical, meaning I can sit with you while you share what you think is best, but don't shame me. Anyway, so no shame, no blame. We hold space for each other. We share our thoughts and we arrive at something together that we agree upon. And then we sit down with our daughter and we say, here's what we have decided. What do you think? By the way, and she's 18. She's not 4 years old. So she has some thoughts about the matter too. So she needs to be included in the collaboration.
Absolutely. Well, let's say that didn't happen, because that sounds lovely from the beginning. But let's say that this went down the way it did. He found out this information. How should he have approached her to begin with?
Yeah.
I mean,
it's a great question. So again, everybody remember that we have a responsibility. We have a responsibility to bring our best selves to this, whatever is in front of us. And come on, I'm married. You're married. Our producer, Katie Buckley's married. Everybody's married. We're all married. So, and by that, what I mean is we get it. We get that stuff happens all the time. All the time. ... And so the point that I'm making is I have a responsibility to keep myself, capital SELF, in a good space so that the next thing Christy does, my wife, next thing she does, I can come to that situation in a reasonably calm, caring, coherent manner. So he didn't do that. So what he should have done, he should have said, hey, can we talk about what you did, how you informed our daughter, what you told her? I've got some feelings about that. And then, by the way, sharing feelings. And you and I work long and hard to encourage people to share feelings, not opinions, not, well, I don't know why you did. You should have, anybody who is thinking would have none of that junk, because that's just going to create, now I haven't brought my best self to the situation. And now I'm co-responsible for things escalating. This is a whole nother tangent, Jonathan, but sometime I want to talk about people using the phrase, yeah, and then things just went downhill. We won't, but anyway, things don't go downhill. We go them downhill. All right.
Right.
So he should have said, I want to talk. Can I share some feelings with you? No shame, no blame. And here's, honey, what I would have preferred. And going forward, here's what I would like.
Right. And I think once it did come out that she was perhaps excited for the extra space, for studio space, I think if he had an option for how to connect, is to identify needs, wants, to identify that up front. And he can actually get excited about it. I think that the way that he presented was more minimizing her and dismissing her. And I see this a lot. You probably do too. I mean, people draw these lines between these two dots that the line doesn't need to be drawn. So this idea of she's excited about her craft space or her studio space, and therefore that's more important than their daughter. And then he says that as an accusation out loud, and it's just incredibly harmful.
Now, to your point, every situation that comes to us, and again, anybody who's in a relationship has a situation coming to them frequently. Every situation is an opportunity for a robust conversation. Yeah. So he could have said to her, hey, it sounds like you're looking for some more space for your art supplies and such and so. Let's talk about that. It sounds like you're anxious for our daughter to leave. Let's talk about that. I'm feeling a little left out, not a feeling. So there, I got to practice. I'm feeling a little disregarded. I say it gently, softly, so that it will land well. And then she hopefully says, oh, tell me about that. And he goes, oh, tell me about that. And both of them go, oh, tell me about that. And when we do that, oh, tell me about that, then guess what everybody feels? I feel, wow, did you just say, oh, tell me about that? How cool. And I just said, oh, all right. And I made the point.
Well, okay, I got another question for you. And this is good because this actually gives us a lot of really kind of specific examples. But what if the conversation does, what would you say, go downhill, and it ends in a really bad way, or at least temporarily? She ignored him for 3 days. She withdrew and withheld and stonewalled. And how is somebody supposed to respond to that? How, on the other side of it, what would be a good approach that he could take?
Sure. Another great question, Jonathan. Again, anybody who's married, anybody who's in a relationship has an opportunity when things have gone downhill, and I hope we've already made that clear. Things don't go downhill. We go them downhill. So then, after we have gone them downhill, we have an opportunity to collect ourselves. I did this recently. I'll tell you, I'll model what I did. So we had a dust up, and I won't go into all the details of the dust up in my marriage. And I didn't act in the best way that I would like to have acted. And so after like an hour and a half of quiet in the car, I turned to Christy and I said, hey, I'd like a do-over. That I didn't handle that well an hour ago. And I want to here's what I did. I took ownership for not doing it well, for the things going downhill, which was me going downhill. I took ownership. I asked if we could reconnect. She gladly, which she always does, or almost always, she said, sure, we can reconnect. I took ownership. I apologized. And now we have a clean slate again. So notice the steps. So things went downhill. No, I went downhill. She went downhill a little too, but we'll talk about David going downhill. I went downhill. And then after a little time of reflection and going like, You're not acting the best way you can, sir. Little conscience in my head, and I shut the conscience off for a little bit. I said, nah, it's her fault. Then, no, you got some responsibility. No. Yes, no, yes, the devil and the angel going at it in my head. And finally, the angel won out, and I approached her and said, hey, look, I'm sorry. Can we do this again? Yes. So that's it. Taking ownership, apologizing, and ask for a refresh or a reset.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What about in the case where, and this is out of, and now I'm just going off on a tangent off of this example, but I'm imagining that people listening to this might be asking or yelling, saying, what about if they did nothing wrong? What if they really were trying to point out some wrong that their spouse had done, something was going on, and then they, as like, I can't handle this, or I don't want to deal with this, shut down. There's really legitimately, let's say, and this is obviously not the case with this example, but let's say in that, the person that's shutting down did a lot of harm, all of the harm really, and now is punishing, which really is a threat for future. Like, don't bring up any problems with me because look at what I'm going to do to you. I'm going to shut down and withdraw. How does that person respond to that type of shutdown?
Well, okay, we'll talk about the shutdown or the silent treatment, but bear in mind, Jonathan, it's pretty doggone rare for it to be 100% 0%. That just is incredibly rare. Does it happen? Sure. And I guess we'll talk about this as if it is happening, as if her silent treatment was the only dynamic going on and he was totally innocent. That's what you're posing, correct?
Yeah.
He's innocent of any wrongdoing. Then and typical to many relationships, the process is the problem. So here we have her process shutting down or withdrawing. So he would approach her and he would comment on it. Again, not in a shameful, accusatory way, but hey, it would sound something like this. Can we talk? I've noticed that you've been quiet the last day or two. And I'm imagining you've got a lot of things going on in your head, but I'd really like to connect. And, I'd really like to talk this through. So if you're pulling away means that you've got some feelings going, I'd love to hear them. All right. Now,
that was one of my thoughts is identify. He would identify his needs. He would say,
yeah,
I want connection with you.
I want connection. And I've noticed that you have been quiet for the last couple of days. So notice what he wouldn't do. He wouldn't go, hey, you ever going to talk to me? You haven't talked to me in 2 days. What's going on? Okay. And then, she snaps at him and he goes, oh, there you go.
I asked this question actually because I'm on the other end from what you described. I tend to shut down when I know that I've done something wrong and I go away and I kind of wall up, and it's really hard for me. I got the devil and angel there telling me what I should do.
Right.
But for me, it's like, you really should go back and apologize. But then the devil's like,
right.
So I'm actually asking this a bit from my own, and I know that the best way to end that is for the person, me in this case, shutting down and stonewalling, to actually end that and approach. But I'm kind of asking what about from the other side?
Yeah, and so if this is a pattern in the relationship, especially if it's a pattern, then I think the other partner would be even a little more pointed. So this is counsel for your wife. Your wife, Jonathan, would approach you and say, hey, I would like to have a talk this evening about something very important. And you hopefully would say, okay. And she would say, man, I've noticed a pattern, Jonathan. I love you, but I've noticed a pattern that when we get into a dust up, you withdraw for a couple of days. And I don't like it. I really don't like it. It really hurts my feelings. I want to stay connected. And man, if you if you want to talk about what's going on with you, that's cool. But to pull away from me for a day or two, or even 2 or 3 hours, if you're going to pull away, if you need some time to think about things, then I'm really asking you to be intentional about that. Tell me that you're taking 2 hours to think about things and that you will be back in relationship so I know what's going on. Otherwise, there's a cloud of confusion in me. I don't know whether you want to be left alone. I don't know whether you want connection.
Right.
And I really feel confused and I feel very hurt. So, and then she would say, can you acknowledge that this is a pattern for you and that are you willing to address it? Because it's important to me. It's getting in the way of our relationship and our connection. And again, Jonathan, just to repeat, there's some themes that come up again and again, and the theme of holding space and being able to sit down and share one's fears, one's concerns, and be heard and be understood. He's got his own fears and his own concerns. She has her own fears, her own concerns. And these are big, big, big decisions. And they shouldn't be made impulsively or reactively. They need to be made. So, all right, everybody, thank you so much. Again, Jonathan, thank you for this. I'm always like, I don't know how I did, but I was real. All right, we got Dr. Hawkins Reacts. If any of this, as always, if any of this resonates with you, please know that we are available to help. You can tell by the robust conversation that Jonathan and I have that we think these kind of things through. Do we have all the answers? No, but we're certainly willing to sit with you and help you sort out the complexities of your relationship. All right, if this resonates, know that we're available to help you, and you can reach out to us by visiting www.marriagerecoverycenter.com to learn more about what we do, and you can find information on our website about the different programs that we have. If you enjoyed today's podcast, today's show, please give it a 10-star rating, and you can't even do that, but anyway, maybe a 5-star rating. And be sure to subscribe to our channel to be notified of new episodes. Thank you again for tuning in, and we will talk to you again soon. Take care.